Alright fellas, I finally snapped. Time to make the yearly Angry Birds video, and what better game to make a video on than the one that impacted my childhood the most, Angry Birds Go. This game is my Scrimblow Jimblow. You know that one game you played when you were a kid that you still adore for some reason? For me, it's this game. It just gives me an overwhelming sense of euphoria every time I boot it up. The colourful art style, the chirpy music, the quirky character animations, it all meshes together to create a mole game that still holds up great in the graphical department. But what about the gameplay? Well, a huge component to any mascot racer are the tracks. The game is split up into 5 portions: Seedway, Rocky Road, Sub-Zero, Air, and Stunt. Each section contains 3 tracks aside from Seedway, which only features 2. It is truly the February of this game. That means there is a total of 13 tracks available to race on across all the main modes, which isn't a great amount, but the quantity has honestly never crossed my mind, probably because you spend so much time playing on each track. But I think it's about time to get to the point. Which of these tracks are the best and which are the least best? To simplify things a little, I'm going to base my analysis of these tracks in the context of the race and versus modes, since Time Boom and Fruit Splat are a little too different, and normal races are what you would be playing online anyway. I'm going to judge these tracks based off their layouts, aesthetics, gimmicks, and just how fun I find each one to be overall. I should also note I am playing the Angry Birds Go Nitro mod by NotCash, Exient Exploits, and Piggy202, an excellent mod that revives the good old version of Angry Birds Go that features a bunch of new additions. I highly recommend checking it out if you're interested, and I'll probably link something related so you can check out in the description. The reason I bring this up is because some of the tracks have been altered. Only like 2 or 3 of them are changed, and it just amounts to adding boost panels and TNT crates. However, these changes won't change my opinion on these tracks at all. I'm judging them based solely off of their original counterparts. It's a good thing I have each track layout simmered in the back of my brain. Alright, with all that out of the way, let us finally kick off with the least good track. Number 14, Sub-Zero 3 Ice Cracker. Oh yeah, did you know all these tracks actually have names? If you go to the party mode, create a room, and go to select a track, you can see they are all labelled with their corresponding title. I don't really know why the names are so out of the way like this. I think it would have been a good idea to show off the title of each track above their mission selection, although maybe it's for the better, because most of these names aren't really that good. Like, some of them sound more like taglines to the tracks more than anything. Anyways, let's talk about Ice Cracker. Despite this one being at the bottom, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad track. Every track in this game is at the very least designed to a standard I would expect from a high-budget, highly regarded company. You can still get some fun out of Ice Cracker, but that mostly comes from the gameplay itself being chaotic in nature. I do like the foggier aesthetic, but I highly prefer the look of the other Sub-Zero tracks. The layout does get a little interesting in places such as the jump across the gap, the ending with the staircase looking hills, and this jump that kinda looks like a skip but really isn't. I think the main thing holding this track back is that it's the final level in the Sub-Zero episode, yet feels the most uninteresting of the 3 layout-wise. Any path you take will just take you to a winding path with no obstacles. It doesn't feel rewarding to make it all the way through a path that feels like it has the same value as the other one. There doesn't really seem to be much of a benefit to picking a specific pathway, which I would argue is one of the best features of most of the tracks in this game. This track lacking that for the most part lands it at the bottom, but again, that doesn't really mean it's bad. I can still get a kick out of this one if I'm feeling the aesthetic or something, but in any other scenario, I'd rather just be playing any other Sub-Zero track. Number 13, Rocky Road 1 Mighty Mountain. This one is just a little too simple for my liking. The track starts off by facing you with a difficult question: left or right? The right path is the main road and consists of driving straight on a wide path followed by a right turn, a left turn, a long right turn, and a big old jump. That's it. No obstacles or anything like that, although the road does get a little bumpy at parts. What about the left path? Well, it's a little more interesting. You got TNT to avoid, which can throw you off when caught in the blast, and a big jump at the end where you can actually hit your head if you're going too fast. Having more obstacles on the alternate path is a trend we will notice in these tracks that I am a fan of. All in all, this track is a good time, just a little simple. Number 12, Rocky Road 3 Oink Canyon. Alright, so while replaying this track, I made an insane realization. What route is this? I thought it might be this blocked path. Maybe it's accessible in other modes, but no. Upon further investigation, it's just there for decoration. I have never been more blue-balled in my entire life. Anyways, yeah, the track is okay. I like the bright aesthetic, it looks very welcoming and pleasant. The alternate routes can be pretty dangerous because there's plenty of TNT and areas to fall off of. Where I think this track falls flat is the second half because it's a straight road. The whole way. Yeah, there's a hill and a split path, but that's it. So yeah, having one half of your track being wow, look, nothing isn't a great look, but the first half is pretty good, which puts it above the other rocky road. Number 11, Seedway 2 Treasure Trial. This track kind of feels like an amalgamation of design choices that could be seen as either bad or funny. So for the track itself, it is pretty short but also pretty condensed. Just going down a hill, then the path splits, left path is simple, right path is TNT. Although the right path in this case feels vastly superior to the left path because it pretty much takes you directly to the finish line. It does have TNT though, so, you know, gotta be careful about that. What I find odd about this track though is the amount of oddities. We got this grass beside the first turn that you may think is off-road, but no, it's completely fine to drive on. There's no penalty for going across the grass instead of the road. What's funny about this is that none of the CPUs go on the grass, and I don't think I've seen many or even any people online take the grass either. It's weird. Would this game have benefited from having off-road in general? Honestly, probably not. It would probably shoot the pacing out of the window, especially since it would probably be pretty tricky to avoid, what with the controls being slipperier and the constant chaos presented to you. Another part of this track I've always found interesting is this log. You can just drive up it, but doing that will kind of just screw you over, so why is it here? You'd think the cinematic trailer would have made a good adaptation of the source material, but clearly they didn't! Number 10. Air 1 Balloon Frenzy. And here we have one of the 3 tracks that are drastically different from any other track in the game. The air tracks take an alternate route down stage design and have the racers suspended in the air. I could honestly see people not digging this style of track since being in the air isn't as interesting gameplay-wise as being on the ground, but I kind of see it like gliding in Mario Kart or Sonic Racing, where you're mostly in it for the spectacle and also the choice of what path you land on. This track makes use of this mechanic, allowing you to choose multiple paths to land on, some even being vertical, but not as many times as the others, landing it in the lower part of the list. Number 9. Sub-Zero 1 The Toboggan. I enjoy this one quite a lot more than Icecracker for a good few reasons. The alternate paths are really different and there's a lot to pick from. We got 2 of these sections where you have a good amount of time to decide which one you want to take, then hope you have enough time to steer yourself down the one you choose considering the slippery controls, and you can't forget the epic jump at the end which really puts you at the edge of your seat and takes your character off the seat once they land. The theme is kind of just a basic snowy setting, but I do like the cable cars you can see above you and even underneath you at the very end. You know you've made it in life when you get an opportunity like that. Number 8. Seedway 1 Piggy Plateau. I'm gonna be honest, I initially thought I was gonna put this one higher because this is the track I've always been the most nostalgic for. Not only is it because it's the first track in the game, but because of the little things like the bright colour scheme, the mighty eagle head that is sometimes there, the welcoming vibe, and the fact that this kind of embodies Angry Birds Go as a whole. That being said, basing a ranking off of nostalgia is for dweebs, so I'm going into this as critical as possible for the Angry Bird game. The turns this track offers are more demanding than what we've seen so far. It's oddly rare that this game does stronger turns, so it's nice to see them in this track. The alternate path is pretty cool since it's much better than normal path, but you also have to contend with the TNT blocking your way. There's also a funny thing I like to do here that feels like a cheat but probably isn't. If you manage to weasel your way down this gap and make it back onto the main road, it looks like you skipped a massive chunk of the level, but in reality you're pretty much at a similar position than you would have been otherwise. I can't tell if this is actually a benefit or not, but I still think it's fun to try it. I've always liked the theme of the track too. It goes for more of a seaside aesthetic, where it starts at the cliff sides of a beach I guess, then ends with a downhill race to the port. The beach itself does have some nice decoration. Overall, a short and sweet track that starts off the game strong. Number 7. Sub-Zero 2 Frostbite. This has always been my favourite Sub-Zero track, and to be fair, I think that's mostly down to the aesthetic. This is one of the nicest looking tracks due to the Aurora Borealis and the purple and blue colours splashed around the stage. The layout can get quite crazy, especially at the end, where you have to try and steer past a giant pillar and then immediately pull left to align yourself for the home stretch. I also really like the jump halfway through since you immediately land on a winding slope. It can get pretty hectic. I know I'm kind of going through the layout backwards here, but even the start is pretty cool because after you launch, you land on another downward hill that forces all drivers to go through the track quickly. The track as a whole has a focus on speed, which, along with the icy physics, make for a chaotic track, which is exactly what you need to make a good Angry Birds Go track in my opinion. Number 6. Hog Hideaway. Honestly, I think this track kind of mogs the other 2 rocky roads in terms of layout. I think my main problem with the other 2 rocky roads is that they feel a little too open in most cases, which kind of leads to a majority of those tracks feeling empty. Hog Hideaway doesn't have this issue. It immediately starts off with the 3 paths to choose from, which all vary in difficulty, since the fastest option also contains obstacles like the big log and more TNT crates. There are plenty of sharp turns to keep you occupied, and the second half of the track features an alternate route which can be actually pretty tough to stay on. Although you do probably want to jump off at some point anyway to align yourself for the finish line. The nighttime theme is also interesting as always, but maybe it can get a little too dark in some areas. I actually think this stage in particular feels one of the most arcadey in the entire game. It feels like it would be right at home in a Mario Kart game. Just gotta call it Donkey Kong Hideout or something. Number 5. Air 2 Flying Fortress. If you're a speedrunner of Angry Birds Go or an avid Time Boom enjoyer, I imagine this is your favourite track in the game. Why do I say that? Well, because of this glitch where if you continuously tilt your carts left and right, you can gain altitude, and doing that in this section triggers some kind of boundary, allowing you to finish the race extremely early. I don't think this glitch is in every version of the game or works with every vehicle, because the combination I had didn't work, and I do remember seeing somewhere that the controls of the game have changed over time. Other than that though, the layout of the track itself is just classic action in the air. A lot of different routes are on offer, and even if they're blocked off, you can still access them by flying over them no freaking way. It can get pretty cinematic too, seeing all the hot air balloons and the rest of the course in the distance. Theming wise, the course is a treat to look at. I really like the aesthetic. Not much more to say, just a really fun and dynamic track. Number 4, Air 3, Rapid Descent. For a small while, I actually remember having a somewhat negative feeling on this track, and that's completely because it made me hate playing the air tracks on Fruit Splat. Good thing I'm carnivorous. The aesthetic of this track feels particularly gloomy. All the colours are more dull, and the cloudy aesthetic makes for a unique theme for this game's standards. It has a similar design philosophy to Flying Fortress in that there are many bridges to land on for alternate paths. What I like about this track more is honestly just the dumb things, like this area you can access that feels like you shouldn't, and this is funny. I do also like how much you are in the air, especially in this section. It gives the track an extra bit of spectacle and decision making time, even if you're just looking at a rocky cliff. Number 3, Stunt 1, the Dust Bowl. Who would have guessed? All 3 stunt tracks take up the top 3 of this ranking. I think it's safe to say like 95% of people who have played this game agree that the stunt tracks are the best in the game. And honestly, I think they're some of the best tracks I've played in any mascot racer. Anytime I see people say F-Zero is the fastest racing game, I smirk and then my neurons activate as I brace for the adrenaline I will inevitably achieve from imagining these tracks, let alone playing them. Each and every stunt track is pure fun, and I can honestly see an argument for any of them being the best in the game. The Dust Bowl is the most basic of the 3 in my opinion, but it is far from bad. You got the loop that sends you speeding down this road, heading towards a wall. Jeez. And then down this path that splits and takes you down to the end. Just please slow the chuck down! I also kind of find it funny how the first half of the track is pretty simple. It makes for some great juxtaposition, although I do like this jump. It's one of the steeper ones that can leave your vehicle in a mess if you're not careful. Overall, a really fun track that I am always down to replay. I didn't need to tell you that, I just wanted to conclude this. Number 2, Stunt 2, Tumbleweed. By far the most interesting looking stunt track, with it being set at night. Man, that's all you need to do for me to call it unique. Although I do remember Jake Miller saying this track's theme is a reference to the Angry Birds Toons episode Crash Test Piggies, and you know what, I actually kind of see it now. The wooden walls, the destroyed rockets, that's a really cool detail. That's why he'll always be a top 5 YouTuber of all time, baby. Anyways, as for the layout itself, it can get a little crazy. We got a corkscrew replacing the loop-de-loop, this jump that sends you flying over the racetrack, and some split roads that have their own benefits. Now that is how you do it, Angry Birds Go. Do it again. Number 1, Stunt 3, Blast Off. If I were to pick one Angry Birds Go track to spend the rest of my life on, it would be this one. Everything it does is tailor-made to make your race as fun and hectic as possible. You start by whizzing down a hill that lasts quite a while and building up speed, which leads you to this really gratifying finish, sending you flying through the rest of the track. You got the split path where you can either choose to content with the TNT or take some sharp turns. This leads to some gaps to jump over and even more TNT. Then we get the famed loop-de-loop that sends you down a waterfall, then you are sent speeding down a rotating bridge, then sent soaring through the air over the track, and then finish with a victory lap down a hill. Man, for being the last level in the whole game, it sure does end off with a bang. Or a blast in this case. It perfectly encapsulates everything I love about this game. It's fast, it's frantic, it's fun. And even though the theme isn't terribly interesting, neither is anything else in this game. That's it, I said it. I think Blast Off comfortably takes the number 1 spot as the best track in the game, although I could see myself picking a different stunt track in the future. Let me know which one you would pick. Or maybe it isn't even a stunt track that's your favourite. Maybe you have a take that's actually interesting, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, I just wanted to make a video on this game at least once. I might make more Angry Birds ranking videos in the future. A dream one I've had for a while now is ranking every single level pack in Angry Birds as a whole. That will probably take a good bit of dedication. Anyways, time to zoom away in my super roaster and whiz down Balloon Frenzy. Catch you all later. Pew! Although the road does get a little bumpy at parts. And what about the left path? Well, oh my gosh.